Okay, I'm going to do something a little different from the opening prayer. I'm going to read the 23rd Psalms, and something we ought to periodically read anyway. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And what prompted that is our pastor is doing a whole sermon series on the 23rd Psalm.
Oh.
Pretty interesting. Okay, Pam?
Yep.
Remember-
Okay, just to give you an update, we have now 80 memberships total. We have 21 family memberships and we have 59 individual members. And we want to welcome Marjorie Davison. She's our new member. I don't know if she's here tonight or not. And we want to welcome back Michael Steinhauer. And that's my
Okay.
report.
Okay.
Yay.
Okay, this slide is just to remind everybody to keep up with what's going on in the club through the Facebook or through our website.
Okay.
And I find it quite informative. So,
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not a member of that website group, you're missing a lot. There's a lot there.
yeah.
Good.
Okay, next slide. We got a little business to take care of. We've got to have a vote. Everybody needs to unmute their microphones. And per our bylaws, 2 of the members have been nominated for re-election from 22 to 25. That's myself and Kathy Muley. And first of all, are there any other nominations from the floor? Please.
No.
No.
Heck no.
Okay, no other nomination. Do I hear a motion and second of those of the nomination? Ron?
I so move that we accept the Jim Skeppens and Kathleen Muley as nominations.
Okay, second?
I'll second them.
Second.
Okay, Steve, you second. So there's a motion to elect 2 directors by acclamation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed say nay. Silence is deafening. Okay, you can mute your thing. So I'm on the hook for another 3 years. As is Kathy. But
I
not
like that idea.
the job we're in. We could do some other stuff.
Yeah. This is a director's job, not necessarily president, vice president, right?
Right, exactly. Okay. The next one's about our Christmas social. It's going to be the 14th of December, which is the 2nd Tuesday of December, in order not to get too close to Christmas. It's going to be at the church, Kingwood First Baptist Church. We've got, we're ordering deli sandwiches, and then we need members that are coming to bring some desserts and some drinks. I'll probably bring a gallon of unsweetened iced tea since I don't do soda pops. So,
Jim, I can count on you. I'm taking down the names.
okay,
Okay, so for drinks,
I'll do a gallon or 2 of the unsweetened iced tea.
okay.
Hey, what would you like me to bring?
Either dessert or a drink.
Okay, what do you need? Which kind of drink do you need?
What you like. We assume that other people will like it too. Diet Coke, iced tea, Coke,
Okay.
regular Cokes.
Okay, so what, a couple of the big liter Cokes, or do you want them in the smaller?
No, the liter bottles we're
Okay,
talking.
I'm good for 2 liters of Coke.
Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
I'll bring one dessert.
okay.
Okay.
There for
Hey,
dessert.
Bill, you're in. Good.
I'll bring some cookies.
Mike,
There you go.
I'll bring a dessert.
Okay, let me get that. Ellen, okay.
Dessert.
James, okay.
And Emily.
I'm down for dessert.
Ellen, you're bringing a dessert? Oh, Connie
These more
says she'll
drinks
bring
here.
a
We got-
dessert.
Yeah, who was gonna do dessert?
I will.
Connie,
Okay, Pam Walton. Okay, good for desserts now.
we got lots of desserts.
Good, we need some drinks now.
I'll bring some drinks. What do we need?
Hey, Tim.
Tim, I'm going to bring unsweetened iced tea that you buy in the gallon jugs at HEB. You might want to bring sweet iced tea.
That's fine. We can do that.
Hey,
Somebody might prefer the sweet iced tea.
Yeah, I can bring some of that spicy water, whatever you call it, this sparkly water.
There you go. Sparkling
Right.
water would be good.
Good.
Flavored water, that kind of.
Okay. I think we got it covered.
Very good.
The other thing is Jim Everard, as he does every year, that we have these, he's going to set up in an adjacent room to the fellowship hall and do portraits. So if anybody with a spouse would like to have a portrait made, he'll be there to do that. And we'll be setting that up earlier in the afternoon. And then Maggie's going to be helping set up with us in terms of the layout of the room and the tables. We've got lots of room. We can spread out, so that's not an issue.
I can probably help Maggie. She lives next door to me. So I could probably go with Maggie and.
Okay,
set up.
that would be terrific. Yeah,
Yeah.
be good. Okay, next slide. Chuck, I think you want to say something about the library series workshops?
Yeah, library
Hi.
series. workshop.
Could I interrupt for just a second?
Sure, go. Go ahead.
Yeah, could I interrupt for just a second?
Sure, Jack.
Sure.
Yeah, I didn't see where anybody's bringing any cups, plates, utensils and so forth. Is there a need for that?
No, I think we have all of that stuff.
Okay,
You know,
okay, I'll bring anything that nobody else wants to bring, so.
Okay,
You can kind of let me know it.
yeah, and make a note of that if,
2 bottles of red wine.
I can
Well, I
do
was gonna
that.
say, Dos
This is the
Equis.
Baptist church.
I think they
the
have a
the
special
Baptists
on,
may have a little problem with some of
I
that.
think they have a special on Boone's Farm.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
Chuck?
Yeah, just on the library series, we haven't really kicked off anything yet, and I need to get going on it. We'll probably try to start having these monthly workshops next year. January, it'll probably be a workshop on basic camera. Again, know your camera. And we'll then get going. I've got a couple of volunteers for some other months. But if you want to give a workshop or you're interested in helping out, please let me know. We don't have a lot going on right now, but we've in the past, we've been able to do workshops almost every month.
Is the library now fully open so we can have them at the
Well,
library?
that's a question right now. It really, they're not pushing that yet.
Okay,
So
okay. And then,
So I've been told it's not going to open until at least the beginning of the year.
yeah. that's
Yeah.
right.
So, yeah.
yeah, we're not planning anything.
These things on Zoom have worked pretty decently, but that makes things like portraits, things that Jim Ever does on portraits, that makes that a little difficult.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to say anything about the photographer Zoom lunch?
Yeah, photographer Zoom lunch. Connie mentioned it. We meet every Wednesday at 12:30 online. And then once a month, we've switched the online to actually in person. Last month, we met at a little place up north of here in New Caney. Tomorrow, it's going to be Skeeters. Is that right, Connie?
Yep.
Yeah, Skeeters at 12:30. If you're a member of the club and you're a photographer and you don't want to talk about photography, this is a great place to come. We solve every other problem of the world.
The world is changing because of these lunches.
Oh, absolutely. We have nudged
Get
it.
on it.
We have nudged it along. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that next one,
Next year, yeah.
you're on for the next one.
SIG meeting,
Yeah.
this
SIG
Thursday,
meeting.
we do a special interest group and we're doing post-processing this week. We're going to be covering the new features in Lightroom, masking, things like that. The guy who will cover that is Chris, but we have other people who will help. I think Jim Hemanga, Jim, I think you said you'd help, right? So we have, that's what our topic will be this month. We'll talk about.
Okay.
Lightroom.
Now, when is that, Chuck?
What's that?
When is that?
At 2:00 on Thursday.
This Thursday.
This Thursday, I will send out a meeting link. Okay, I'm making a note myself right now to send out a meeting link.
Okay. And Jim Everard is planning a portrait SIG. We have to get access to the room at the Kings Point pool. And the other thing he's going to need, and he makes a note here, we need some subjects to photograph for the portrait. So if there are, if it's a weekend, we can probably use kids since they're off from school, if you can get them out of the house and drag them down there, which you probably don't want to do. But anybody has a suggestion, or knows somebody that would like to model, let Mr. Everard know.
Do we have a date for that?
No, we don't. The date's to be determined.
Okay.
A lot of it is around when we can get the swimming pool room.
Okay.
Hey,
We
Jim,
should check and see if there's any seniors that would like some portraits. That would be a nice gift.
Yep.
Some of the seniors need them for their resumes and their scholarships.
Good point.
You're talking about high school seniors?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good point. We just need
Maybe
to work
contact the
that.
counselor and ask her for some time that what you're doing, and see if she can give you 4 or 5 seniors that could show up and count for double, invite double, and hope that half show. You know how that goes, right?
Okay. But Ann, next slide.
okay.
Okay. Just a reminder that the trip to the zoo lights is this coming Friday. And we hope, my only experience with going to the zoo lights was trying to get there once on a busy December Saturday. And there was just no place to park, and you had to park way away and catch a bus, and the traffic was going the wrong way. So we ended up and turned around and came back. I'm hoping by getting here very early in the year and before any holidays that we're going to beat that. And we'll be able to actually park at the zoo and go into the front entrance. You cannot buy tickets there. You have to buy them online ahead of time if you want to come. We'll meet at the church as usual between 4 and 4:30. I'll probably be there at 4, but we'll probably leave close to 4:30 so that we can get downtown. There will always be a mess downtown to get through, but getting to the zoo, getting through downtown is just tough.
Yeah.
And the lights, the whole event starts at 5:30, so that'll give us a full hour to get down. And then coming back should be a breeze. We have a chance, we might take all the lights there. Take in the lights there. We can, depending on what the group wants to do, and go out to eat at nearby Rice Village. Or we can eat, there's the food trucks at the zoo, or we can just come home and skip food altogether. Bring your, if you're coming, bring a tripod, and we should have fun.
Yeah.
What?
Go ahead and finish what you were saying.
Okay. And just know January trip is a downtown walking tour. And then in February, we've got the Orange Show, which is a amazing, iconic Houston tradition. You will be blown away by this. I love it. It was one of my very first trips with the photo club back when Leon was the president. So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay.
Now, what were you going to ask?
I was going to mention on the Zoo Lights trip, I've been having to go down every week to the museum district, which is near the zoo.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to go, I'd opt to go a little earlier than 4. It can take you, by the time you park and walk and everything, it's going to take you more than an hour and a half, in my opinion. And if there's any traffic accident or any traffic problem at all, you can add another 30 minutes to it.
Okay.
So think about that.
Well, I have moved it back up to 4 as on the website as a time to leave.
Okay.
So I will send out an email to people that have signed up. If you would like
Yes.
to sign up, we still have, we'd love to have you.
Okay.
Hey, Jim, I want to mention something. Can I cut in here just for a second?
Sure.
We have the special needs. Have asked for us to come back and do another Santa shoot for the kids. Kids, I mean, the special needs people, they range in all sorts of ages. And that'll be December 11th. I've already got a bunch of volunteers who do that. I'm going to try to get the group together in a Zoom meeting and plan it out, but just let you know that's coming up too. Okay.
That's great. Also, I'd like to mention if anybody wants to have a pop-up trip or run a pop-up trip.
Yeah, can I mention something real quick? I know I had mentioned a thing about this distillery, but after talking to both Ann and Kathy, we're probably going to push that back to January. It's a small homebrew distillery here in close to us. It's down near the Beltway 8 and 59. We'll push that back probably till January. But I think Ellen had mentioned the idea of going to the museum to see the Georgia O'Keeffe exhibit. And I'm interested in doing that. So I was going to suggest the 3rd of December, which is a Friday. It's a week after Thanksgiving. And I just wanted to kind of clear it with some people in the club, but I would like to post something that I'll help organize that. And if anyone wants to go down, maybe mid to late morning, see the Georgia O'Keeffe photography exhibit, and then maybe go over to the village and grab a bite to eat before heading back, because food is important to photography. Especially with our group. So,
Yeah.
anyway.
Just note you and Ellen, if y'all agree with the 3rd, just put something out to that effect.
Yeah, and I don't know if Ellen, I'm looking at the list here and I can't look so far down, but I don't know if Ellen's here or not. I know someone said, hey, you want to head it up, but I will work with Ellen.
Probably a minority. I'm probably a
And
minority,
I'd
but
like to say that the MFA gives a discount to veterans.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
I'm probably a minority, but I just wish it was after, not during working hours. But that's just
I
me.
know, yeah.
I know. Hey, Doug, did you ever mention the Pearl Harbor Remembrance event on Saturday the 4th at the USS Texas?
It's been mentioned
Mr.
somewhere.
Duval?
Yep.
I thought I may have seen it on our Facebook page. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty big deal, the Pearl Harbor Remembrance. There's going to be a lot of people there. It's also the last time you're going to get to photograph the USS Texas where it's at. So those of you that are interested, that's going to be a pretty big deal.
What date is that?
It's on Saturday the 4th, that morning.
Coming up, yeah. Okay.
And just to say, if anybody has a great idea for an event, please mention it and put it out, and we'll even put it on the website for you if you want somebody else. I can put it up in the calendar. It's no big deal.
I have something that isn't an event, but as far as our meeting speaker, y'all may remember E.J. Tall. He's a wonderful photographer, and he volunteered to do a photography critique during the meeting, where he said there are no bad photographs, only better photographs. So the members could present 3 photographs, and we'll put them up and say, well, look, if you cropped it here, it might be a little better, or if you did this or that. And so he volunteered to do that if y'all are interested.
Was he a chronicle photographer?
No.
He might have been, yeah.
Yeah, I know his name, yeah.
No,
He was a physician.
Position.
Oh, Okay,
Yeah.
well,
He was a physician, but he was also a professional photographer.
I need my heart looked at, no.
Okay.
Yeah, and that would be, Emily, in lieu of, that would be our program.
That would be the program instead of.
Yeah, I like
Sure.
that idea. I
Yeah.
do.
That'd be good.
And, okay, Connie, are you on?
She was.
on. Okay, well, never mind. We'll talk about it. Okay, next slide,
Okay.
moving right through. I don't know why Kathy put this in.
Oh, this is just to remind you that we've been very busy, this is kind of
Okay.
looking in the past at some of the things. Also to make sure that you look on Facebook to get all the information you need coming up. Same night we're going to the zoo lights is a lunar eclipse. For those of you that are able to get out and do those kind of things.
Okay.
And then we had John Gray went down and took pictures of the skulls. It was called something else, but they're pretty cool looking. And love this photo from Benjamin that
Yeah.
of the the dead witch that didn't quite make it to where she's going. And just a quick shout out to the people that went on our last trip with us. And we designed our arrangement according to the portrait guy that talked to us, so that we all had our heads in between the
Okay.
and we were rather proud of that. The light could have been better, but you only learn so much at a time.
Okay, I think the next thing up is Bill Beard's video.
You see it now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. It starts off silently and then it gets going. It's pretty scary starting intro.
Hail, South Dakota, a great state of the land. Health, wealth, and beauty, that's what makes her grand. She has her black hills and mines with gold so rare. And with her scenery, no state can compare. Come where the sun shines and where life's worth your while. You won't be here long till you wear a smile. No state so healthy and no folk quite so true. To South Dakota, we welcome you. Hail, South Dakota, the state we love the best. Land of our fathers, builders of the West. Home of the Badlands and Rushmore's ageless shrine. Black hills and prairies, farmland and sunshine. Hills, farms, and prairies, blessed with bright sunshine.
Spacious skies As we commune, I'm all consumed to worship you alone. To worship you alone.
Beautiful.
Wow, that was awesome.
Awesome, wonderful.
That
You
was-
know,
Okay, this is a good follow-up. Everybody that went on the South Dakota trip, I think vouches that it was a wonderful trip. And one of the things I want to try to do is build on that in the future with this club, and that is have more out-of-town trips. I'm looking at different ideas for 2022. The one criteria I kind of set is that wherever we go, we should be able to either fly or drive, which says it needs to be within a 2-day drive. Three ideas I came up with. One is Charleston, South Carolina, which is about 1,200 miles. Albuquerque, Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is about 850 miles. Durango, Colorado, and John Gray and I both know a lot about Durango, John especially. That's about 1,200 miles. I did not add anything for California because it's just too far to drive. But, and I made a note here, Charleston, the South, typically the time to go there is in the spring when all the flowers and the azaleas and everything are blooming. In September, October is the best time for the West. Number one, the weather's drier then, the crowds are gone, and we have a good opportunity to get more fall foliage. So there's two things I want everybody to email me is one is, are you interested in a week-long trip? And number two, do you have a specific place that we should consider? Because I'm sure there's more than these three. And then we'll start to build on that. One of the things that Ann and I talked about was a spring trip is probably not in the cards for 2022, simply because we're planning to go to Fredericksburg in April, I think, for a long weekend.
Yeah, in the end of March.
Into March?
Right.
Yeah. So, but anyway, keep that in mind. And I'd like to hear from everybody. And I'd like to see how many people really have an interest in these week-long trips. So.
And as far as going to Albuquerque, there's a slew of places between here and Albuquerque. There's a fabulous cave.
Yep.
There's Bosque del Apache Wildlife Preserve. There's Carlsbad Caverns. And there's just a ton of stuff between here and Albuquerque and near Albuquerque. So I think it's a great area.
Jim, you can also plan the trip for the Albuquerque Balloon Festival.
Yeah, that too.
The problem with the Albuquerque Balloon Festival is I think we probably have a hard time finding motels because 8 million people come to that.
That's true. But in November, the Bosque del Apache has something like 10 or 15,000 sandhill cranes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that come in, plus a million others.
Yeah, why don't we make that list and send it to Jim? Hey, Jim, I can set up something on the website that people can send you their ideas and stuff if you'd like.
Do that. That would be terrific.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Okay, and we'll work on that. We've got plenty of time.
Yeah, well, we'll get something going. Yeah.
Okay, and if we were to go to Albuquerque, Durango, whatever, I made a trip with a bunch of guys last year to Colorado for golf. And we rented an Enterprise minivan and 4 of us drove up there and had a blast just driving together and talking about things.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, we're time for our feature program. Richard Carlson, a member of the South Dakota Photo Club, Back Hills Photo Club, is going to be presenting photojournalism. And I think, at least in my experience, we've not had a program on photojournalism.
Had one.
We have, okay, may have been before my time, but Richard got interested. I guess he's from South Dakota, and he got interested when he was in college, and he did something that all of us probably at one time or another wished we had done, and that is, instead of chasing an engineering or a degree, he followed his passion and began to learn photographer, and he classifies himself as self-taught, and he got into photojournalism. He went from the film era to digital, I think in '96, he said, but he's been published in Sports Illustrated and many regional magazines and publications. Is quite well known. So I'm going to turn it over to Richard.
Okay, Richard, I'll stop my share.
All right.
Let's see if I can see it.
And then do I need to do the start?
Yeah, if you can start your share now and
Okay.
try to do what you did earlier. That's good.
Is that working?
Perfect.
That's working perfectly.
Yeah, you got, I think that's your title slide up.
Yeah. Well, it was already mentioned that I'm self-taught, and by that, you know, certainly I wouldn't stop short of giving some other folks credit that were probably peers at the time. But I remember as an engineering student getting a little more interested in and got some advice from somebody that I should just you know, buy 100 feet of film and some chemicals and just start doing it. And so I sort of took that to heart, but I also told some fibs and got a job on the college yearbook in a newspaper claiming that I had worked in a darkroom before, and I never had. So then I had a darkroom to work in. And one of the first things I grabbed was the Time Life book on how to process film from the library on campus. And so that's how that sort of got going. But anyway, so fast forward a bit, I was still taking, you know, a lot of physics and stuff when I left school. Now, I would go back and say, I don't know if this was the best decision of my life or not, but because I was having no trouble with engineering, but I was also borrowing money for school, and I was working part-time at a camera store as an assistant manager, making about $4 and change an hour at the time. And so when the opportunity came to work at a daily newspaper for $6.35 an hour, I thought, what the heck am I doing in school? You know, I need to get out of here and make some bucks. So anyway, that's sort of how it happened. And, you know, ended up doing it for a little over 20 years full time. So, and I still do. My last year full time at a newspaper was 2006. So, you know, it's been quite a while since I've done photojournalism full time, but I mean, I still consider that kind of my main thing. And, you know, to be honest, in the last 12 to 15 years, I've probably done more teaching than actual photography. The cameras will sit for months at a time. But there's a couple things that I'll do every year. And one of those things is a couple of basketball tournaments. And one of the reasons why is really because it's like a homecoming for a lot of the media people that I used to know. So it's kind of fun to go to those, and it's an exciting time of year. I'm a big fan of March Madness. So I still do a little freelance and whatnot. You know, when your name has been out there in decades past, you know, sometimes you'll be the person that sometimes gets a call for something, or maybe you're in a pretty remote area, sort of like I am. And I think it was 6 or 7 years ago when ABC Disney got a hold of me somehow. I think I was still listed on a sports photography website somewhere. And it said that my background had been newspapers. And I think people like trying to hire newspaper photographers because they know they'll turn the stuff around pretty quickly. And I worked at 2 daily newspapers, and you know, you're used to just cranking it out that same day and getting on to the next thing. So I did a couple of assignments for ABC Disney in the last 5-6 years. One being The Bachelor. The Bachelor was in Deadwood a while ago. And another one was I forget the name of the program, but there was a story they were doing on one of the reservations here, and that was a little over a half-day thing. And so that was kind of a nice change of pace there. But so, I mean, I still do some photography, and to be honest, I traded in almost everything I had last summer and was going to just get a check for it. But I had enough to get a new mirrorless camera, and so I did that instead. And now I'm sort of interested again in getting back into it because it's been a wonderful experience. My newest camera prior to last year was from 2012. So anyway, ton of fun, obviously, doing photography and oops, let me back up one here. So there's me probably in about 1986 or 87, probably needing a little bit of a haircut, but it was always, everybody carried a donkey bag and wore a cargo jacket, and that's kind of how it was. That was your uniform. I say 1986, I started at a daily newspaper in 1985, but I say 86 because it was 1986 when the T90 was introduced. You guys see my mouse?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a T90 camera there. That came out in 1986. And then the donkey bag was, which you can still buy a donkey bag. That was kind of the standard issue stuff of the time. And frankly, I was about ready to switch. I'd used Canon prior to that. And we had a few Nikon, for those of you that have been at this a while, some Nikon FE2s for the reporters to use. And, the FE2 and the FM2 had 250 flash sync, which was kind of a big deal at the time. And something that I was really wanted and was about ready to switch. And then Canon came out with this T90, which had that. And even though the T90 was this round shaped, weird looking camera compared to what all the other traditional cameras were, it turned out to be a pretty great camera. So anyway, that's sort of how I date that photo there. So way back still in the 80s there, the red arrow is pointing at me. I'm standing in the corner. That's then Vice President Bush off to the far right side there, who happened to visit the town that I was working in, spoke at the university there. And I don't remember if this was if it was just a visit or if this was when he was considering running for president. So it might've been, 87 or so. And there's another photographer off to the left there that I worked with. So probably what was happening here is, I don't know if you can tell, but so I've got a light stand, a little tiny light stand here with a flash on top of it. And there's a little gray square thing here. That's actually a battery that was kind of known as a gel cell back then. And back then, NiCad batteries were kind of the rechargeables, and those were horrible. You could go buy one of these gel cells for not much money, and then you could go cut a couple of pieces of wood doweling and solder some wires into your battery compartment and run your flash off a gel cell like this, and it would last much longer and it would recycle faster. If you shot a lot fast, your flash might get a little warm. So, it was probably pushing a little more through it than you needed to be. But, you wanted to be able to get a lot of shots in a short amount of time if you could. Limited, of course, by your film. So, and you may also notice that I've got a flash on my camera and I've got that aimed toward the ceiling. And I don't know how many of you use flash or speed lights at all. But bouncing the flash obviously softens things up a little bit. And what I have in my hand to help reflect a little bit of the light directly back toward the subject is an ashtray that I found on the table. So I'm using that as a little bit of a kicker for my light, and then that's bouncing off the ceiling, and that second flash over on that stand is bouncing off the ceiling as well. So probably what was going on is I was probably trying to shoot some color slide film. So I needed a lot of light. And the other guy is shooting a flash also, but he might have been shooting black and white. So we were, this was important enough for both of us to be there. One person shoot color, one person shoot black and white. So it turned out to be that, I sort of discovered, which worked, I guess, with an engineering personality, that it was a photojournalist was a very MacGyver-oriented profession at the time. So photojournalism, what it is, and it's probably more complicated than this, but it tells a story. Obviously, that's kind of the main thing. Pretty rigid ethical boundaries in terms of how you process your images and how you approach and deal with subjects and that sort of thing. There's often no control of your access to the subjects. It might be just live events or whatever. That's not to say that you don't take what we would call an environmental portrait or something once in a while. So you certainly would take posed pictures as well. And the deadlines are often fairly critical. Now, it wouldn't be so much if you're, working with a big newspaper on a project that they're giving you 2 months to finish, or you're working for a magazine where you get 3 months to follow a certain story. That's usually not the case at small daily newspapers. A lot of the time you're just doing day-to-day stuff, and you may do some stuff for the next week or something, but you may not get to visit the same subject a dozen times over a period of months. Now, I did have a young lady present a couple months ago for a group that I have on Zoom, who's in her mid-20s, and she works in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is, used to have 5 photographers. Now there's just 1, and she does a great job. And she went through one of the stories that they let her visit the same family for, whenever she could make time, over a period of several weeks. And it was some really nice pictures. She got to spend time in their home and kind of hang out and just be part of the family, sort of, and really become integrated into the family to really give a good in-depth story about them. So anyway, that's kind of what that's about. Oh, there it goes. I'm going to show a few cameras. I didn't, what was not mentioned, and I'll mention real quick, is my job in Deadwood is actually working on a historic photo collection. So in the collection I'm working on, it's probably 80 or 90% portraits, weddings, that sort of thing. But the other 10% is events like rodeo and construction at Mount Rushmore and that sort of thing. So, in case I accidentally clicked on something, you might have seen my background change. That guy, that's Animal from the, what was that show with Lou Grant and
Storyteller More Show.
There you go. So he was the photographer at the newspaper where they all worked, Ted Knight, that whole bunch. So anyway, but in the collection here, I've got some old cameras. I thought I'd show a few of those, and then I'd start with a few photos from the collection I work on that are of course not my pictures, but turned out to be more geared toward photojournalism type of shots. So see how it seems to be pretty slow in switching here. So I'm going to see. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So this big wooden camera here is probably from about 1910. Probably could shoot up to about an 8x10 negative. The way it's outfitted, although you can't quite see the back of it, it's set up for a 5x7 negative here. So you could put a negative carrier in there with 2 pieces of film in it. You'd have to put it in there, flip it around, turn, quite a process just to take a picture. When nowadays, we take hundreds of pictures within a short amount of time. There was a little workshop going on at the place where this collection is stored is Deadwood History Inc. So you see the DHI on the kids there. So they had some kind of kids program, and I brought some stuff over for the kids to look at and look through and that kind of thing. So that's kind of what's going on there. That's a camera from a little over 100 years ago. And then just jumping way ahead here, some other cameras, like there's a Polaroid on the left from the 60s, and then that little medium format or twin lens camera in the middle. And then that Zeiss camera on the right with a that can all kind of collapse and fold up, so it's fairly compact. Little mini bellows there to pull the lens out and that sort of thing. So we've got several hundred items in our collection that are cameras or what I would call photography retail items, or maybe even darkroom stuff that we haven't spent much time with so far, but we're kind of hoping to get at some of that stuff fairly soon. Back to my old T90, there's a picture I just found recently in a box that there's my old bag with some stuff that I had probably in the 1986, 87, 88, right in there, that time frame. With my ID, there's my ID from Canon Professional Service and National Press Photographers Association. You'll see I'm shooting some Fujichrome 50 right here, keeping some of that in the bag, and flash and some duct tape there and that kind of stuff. So a bag full of goodies. I don't think this looks like a lens that I did not own. I may have taken this picture because I was borrowing that lens from Canon. It looks like a 500 f4 or something. I did have a 300 millimeter at the time that was that white color, but fast forward even well past the film cameras now. In 1996, this is the camera we got at our newspaper, and we got 3 of them. So the EOS DCS3 is what this is. So it was a collaboration between Kodak and Canon, and they also, Nikon was in on the deal as well. So they had created a digital back essentially for the professional film cameras they were building at the time. So this was a 1.3 megapixel camera. The images, as you might expect, were horrible, and it was a $13,000 camera.
Wow.
This is mostly battery here at the bottom. And, you know, for those of you that are computer oriented, and I should have taken a picture of it, but the disk in here is a PCM-CIA card. So that's something that you used to insert in the side of a laptop to give you a modem or storage or whatever. And not long after these cameras came out, the compact flash drive also came out. And IBM made a little compact flash drive that was actually a spinning hard drive. So the hard drive was about the size of a quarter inside of this little compact flash card. Needless to say, if it got bumped or dropped with hardly any jolt at all, it was no good. So, but anyway, and then some more of the solid state stuff obviously came around after that. And, you know, and in the early days, you know, if you wanted to get, you know, 128 megabyte card, it might be $500 or something. So that was kind of the beginning of digital for me, was 96, 97. And I still shot film into the early 2000s at the newspapers I was at. So we'll fast forward even a little farther here. See a couple of people at a track meet here. There's a camera right there, flip phone. So this is probably, I don't know, I can't remember when I grabbed this photo here. I spotted this 08, 09, right in there probably. So unknown, I know those cameras, some of them would do a little video as well, but probably pretty low resolution. I think I've found some stuff. And of course, more currently, here's a smartphone that someone's taking a picture of. This is a concert on Main Street, Deadwood here. And I happen to be behind them. So I kind of just focused in on their phone. And of course, if I were on one of those CSI shows, I could take that image off of their screen and bring it in and probably identify somebody. So anyway, but the phones, of course, today make beautiful pictures. So I'll throw in a few of these images from the collection here real quick. You know, those were the days when, you know, this is the gentleman in the center was being arrested here. So they kind of made a big deal out of that back in the day. You know, they're going to get a camera in there so we can photograph this arrest. So they're getting ready to handcuff this guy in the middle who had murdered 2 law enforcement officers in 1946. So that was 75 years ago. So everybody, you know, gathers up for a shot like that, you know, and then, you know, hey, let's all stand around the electric chair. You know, this was the only person to be executed by electric chair in South Dakota. And that happened, I think, the next year after he was arrested. You know, so these are not, you know, the live spot news, you know, type of shots. They're kind of, like I said, were maybe a little more the typical shots of the day where they would, you know, here's the shot we're going to put out with the press release about this guy's execution type of thing, or the story. Let's get the, you know, some people in there. I know this guy is a sheriff, you know, these probably some other law enforcement guys here posing with that electric chair. It's, coincidentally, I'm going to back up to that again. I was touring the Heritage Center in Pierre several years ago during a history conference, and they took us in the back room where the archives are, and this is where the state archives are. And I saw this chair, but I had not come across this picture at this point. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I took a picture of it with my phone that I had with me at the time. And then I came across this later and I thought, wow, that's the same chair. You know, it got used once. So it's on, it's kept in the archive.
Hey, Richard, are you doing restoration of the pictures or just documentation, trying to get all the history behind it?
Well, a little bit of both. So we're scanning, you know, I told you earlier about a lot of the collection is portraits and weddings. Most of those have some names attached to them. We're just cataloging those. We're not digitizing anything because there's supposedly about 800,000 images in this collection. So that would take, we don't have enough lifetimes to do that, but we are cataloging those. So, I mean, if you're someone that knew, like, hey, my grandma graduated from Deadwood High School in 1938, let's check the database for her name. Then if I've cataloged it, then I can put my hands on that negative in 30 seconds and then digitize it after that. The rest of the photos are you know, like these things that I'm digitizing. I've digitized maybe 4,000 of them so far. Kind of just scanning willy-nilly at this point. You you know, a lot of these are prints. Presumably when the print was kept, it was not too bad a quality and it was fairly clean. So those go pretty fast and they don't necessarily need a lot of work after they're digitized. But if you're scanning from a negative, it's kind of like starting from a raw file. So you're starting from scratch and there might be some lint on there that's been embedded in that negative for 50 years. And so then there's cleanup to do. I'd say for the most part, we digitize and then try to get it out there. And if someone makes a request for the image, then I may do a little cleanup or suggest to them if they want more cleanup done, they can have someone else do it, whatever, because we don't want to spend hours on an image without charging someone for that probably. And there's other people that do that. And our collection is owned by three municipalities, Lead and Deadwood and Spearfish. And we're not here to compete with people that do that. We would just soon hand that off to somebody and say, if you're willing to pay for somebody to do the restoration, go to these folks. But we won't turn people down either if they don't have any other choice. So that's a long answer to say, yeah, we're doing some restoration. We're coming across more glass plate negatives where the emulsion is actually falling off. We have to sort of do a triage really at that point to figure out, is this worth saving? What's the subject? We have to kind of just figure that out.
Yeah.
But
Richard, I had a request here from a couple of people. It doesn't bother me, but you have your settings screen there overlapping a little bit on the.
Oh, sorry.
If you just minimize or take it out of the way, that's good. I liked it because I could see your face, but that's okay. All right.
Fair enough.
I'd like to say that I had some very historic movie film that from my family, and I found a place called Northeast Historic Film Preservation because the film was starting to delaminate, and they were able to put it on this thing that didn't run it through sprockets. They would just put it on a flat surface and reproduce it. They did an amazing job of saving what was left of some of these historic films.
Yeah, was that like 8mm?
Yeah.
And 16? And we've got very little of that. And from my understanding is that movie film is even more delicate in that regard. And we've had some we got like a little grant a few years ago to digitize some of it, and we sent it to somewhere in Nevada, I think, which some other historian locally had the connection with the place, so that we just sort of went by that personal recommendation, and we were pretty happy with what they did. They seemed to be very professional and certainly took care of business there. And you don't know what to expect when it comes back, because it's not like the clean, sharp 4K video of today, certainly, but I'm glad that there are some resources out there still to do that sort of thing. That's really good.
Yeah, and not only that, they sent them to the originals to the Smithsonian, where they're being stored in case sometime in the future they come up with a better way of doing it.
Sure, perfect. You couldn't ask for anything better in that situation. So this guy's name is George Hopkins. So back in 1941, in October of 1941, he was going to do a publicity stunt. He wanted to break the world record for the number of skydives done in one day. And as a publicity stunt, before his attempt to do that, he was going to jump onto the top of Devil's Tower. And so he did that. And, you think about back in those days, they didn't have the chutes that you can steer and land right in the baseball diamond or whatever like today. It was quite a feat. Well, they didn't really have a plan for him to come down, and he ended up stranded up there for 6 days. And so it's kind of a funny story, and it got a lot of national attention. We had some of these headlines in our collection as well. And obviously a news item, and you can sort of imagine again, back in those days, things that, you shoot us on way down peak, these are all very, I shouldn't say sensational, but it kind of makes you think back to those newsreel things that you can watch. And I think this would actually make a really good half-hour story on the History Channel or something like that. But anyway, pretty interesting. And again, kind of a connection from our collection into the photojournalism here. I'm going to take a 10-second break. I'm in a building where I think I'm supposed to be the only person, and I can hear someone in here right now. I'm going to see who that is. Give me 10 seconds.
If you don't get show back, call the police, 911.
If we hear something bad.
Hey, Connie just gave me a suggestion by text that was a good one. If you want to see the speaker, change your view, go up to view and change that to like side by side with speaker. And then you'll see the speaker.
I switched mine to my granddaughter this time, so here we go. It's a custodial person that's in, I could hear the vacuum going, so I think I'm safe. So I'll move on to the next one here. Whoops, back up. So again, from this collection, there are some photos from the various stages of construction in Mount Rushmore, and some of those were published in 1940 in Saturday Evening Post. I took a picture of the cover. It's in pretty, it's not in great shape. But again, there's a pretty good overlap of photojournalism and documentary type of photography, and that's what I would consider this stuff to be here, is that type of thing. So very good. And I don't know how many of you were here in the Black Hills, but if you were in Lead, right up in here where this building is, and there's a building next to it, those buildings are still there. The rest of these are all gone. I think I might have even had a circle. There it is right there. So those buildings up toward that end are still there. And these other buildings are pretty much gone. These bigger buildings closest to the camera are very close to that. If you were in Lead at all, at the visitor center there, in that large open pit, open cut portion of the mine, is pretty close to where these other buildings were. They had a lot of problems with subsidence, meaning that the ground was collapsing because of all the underground mining. And that's the short story, is that a lot of these really cool old buildings no longer exist. Back in the 1930s, the Strata Bowl, which is southwest of Rapid City, is where the National Geographic and the folks got together for a couple of different stratosphere balloon flights. And so this was taken from a rim overlooking the Stratosphere Bowl, and lighting up in there, inflating and getting ready to launch the next morning to go up to 70,000 feet or however high they went. And then every September, there is the Balloon Club, that does try to do a little balloon festival down there. That's kind of commemorates that a little bit. So we'll jump into a few other photos here. News photography. I'm not gonna, my stuff is all pretty old. So as I kind of looked through some stuff in the past week or two, I decided to pick out a few things that were just kind of the ugly side of things. And they're not horrible pictures by any means. They're just like, this would be not a typical day, but kind of a typical expectation you might have at a small newspaper. So if you go to a state basketball tournament, for example, like, hey, I'm going to go, you have people know who you are sometimes, and they'll say, hey, these guys are all painting their bodies over, so I go into the men's room and here's these high school boys getting ready for their game, so this is a little behind the scenes kind of stuff that, sure, there's the action on the playing field or on the court. But if you're looking to do a picture story, then you try to get some of this behind the scenes stuff. And so this is probably from, I would say, 1988 or 9, something like that, probably. Clearly back then, shooting film and trying to shoot it in low light gets grainy pretty quickly. And so I feel like pretty spoiled these days that cameras have gotten so good. And don't get me wrong, I love it. So I like to harken back to the old days when we all had to go uphill both ways, walking through the snow and all that good stuff. But anyway, so seeking out things like that behind the scenes are often what help add to that story. Accident scenes were the kind of thing that, people kind of talk about ambulance chasers and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a line between going and observing and documenting something and then what you would publish. The first newspaper I worked at would typically not ever publish a photo that showed the victim. So like a photo like this wouldn't get published. And that's just out of respect for that person. Some places would do that. But going to the scene, you feel like it's kind of your job to document, and then you can kind of filter those things out later. Again, this is probably mid 1980s here. Same thing here.
Into the operating room.
This one, of course, these things always happen when it's close to dusk. So this is pretty grainy and rough, a woman that was taken out of a house that was on fire. And she's got some oxygen here. And again, a photo, I don't recall, but my guess is that this did not get published either. But it's just something that I hung on to, because way back in the day, I was teaching some classes at a university in the late 80s. And so sometimes I would include some photos that weren't necessarily published to talk about. Still in the 1980s, some of you probably recognize this woman, Geraldine Ferraro. So this was after, I think she ran for, she was with Walter Mondale, and it was at 84. And so after that, of course, she was, came to be well known, of course, running on the ticket. So she came to South Dakota to campaign for, you can see the name on the podium, Tom Daschle, who was a Senate Minority Leader for a while. So, I mean, I just kind of hung on to a few photos from back in the days. So not spectacularly creative or anything like that. This is just your typical stuff. Not that we had these kinds of visitors often in that neck of the woods, but the lighting happened to be nice, and she made a nice profile, and it was just kind of a typical speaker shot. So similarly, even in the small town where I was at, you occasionally have a person who may be homeless, and I actually sat down and talked with this guy after I took the photo and wrote a short story about him. When I'm talking to other classes, I will often say, the one thing that I think is really cool about doing photojournalism, especially for me in my 20s, was it was a really great way, even in a small, I say small, 25,000 population town, to experience the breadth of humanity. Whether you could, the same day, I could be photographing a person like this, who's, down and out, but later the same day, I might be photographing a CEO at their, high dollar mansion type place or whatever. So you sort of experience the breadth of humanity quite a bit in a job like that. And this young lady obviously was put on duty to help with some protesting. There's always protesting, no matter how far back you go or whatever. And you can see she's kind of wiped out a little bit, but anyway, kind of a sweet little face. And I don't remember what the issues were, but it had to do with some tribal council and reservation stuff. And I've just always sort of liked her face, even though she looks like she's kind of wiped out there. So I did have a couple of photos. These are from 1991, so Gulf War stuff. So there were two different groups that left the city I worked in, and when they returned home, I actually got a full page, front page picture each time. So this is kind of a poor copy, but the picture ran the full page. So there was no other stories on the front page, and it's, hey, they're returning home or whatever. So you're kind of your typical coming home type of shots. One more there, different group coming home. So I put this one in here because you guys are from Texas, so you probably recognize this shot.
Yep.
And the only reason I put this in there is, first of all, it's an iconic photojournalism. And it is connected to, it was in I think the Dallas Times Herald, is that what it was called? Or Dallas Morning Herald, I can't remember.
Morning News.
Morning News.
Yeah.
And does anybody know the photographer's name?
No.
Bob Jackson. So I only put this in because, so backing up to like this stuff, when some of these troops were shipping out, I would travel with a reporter to wherever they were shipping out from. In one case, it was Fort Riley, Kansas. Another case, it was Fort Carson, Colorado. Well, in those days, you needed to have a darkroom to work in. So it was sort of an unwritten thing that if you're visiting somewhere, then you'll be able to just make arrangements, use the darkroom at the local newspaper in that town. And you needed a way to send your pictures back to your newspaper. So, and most daily papers were subscribers to the Associated Press, and the Associated Press had the equipment to transmit photos. And you could transmit directly to your own paper, or you could send it to the Associated Press. Well, I was at Fort Carson with a reporter doing some photos, and I was using the darkroom at the Colorado Springs newspaper. And I think at the time, a nearly retired Bob Jackson was helping out as a darkroom technician. And I remember briefly meeting him, and I remembered his face, and at the time didn't really make the connection of who it was, and probably didn't necessarily know. But I remember thinking back on it like, wow, that's a pretty iconic photo. And at the time, the National Press Photographers Association was sending out posters about every other month, just showing some iconic photo that was from history or whatever. And this one had the story behind it. And there's some nice videos out there. If you go look up Bob Jackson and this photo, there's some nice stories out there about this. But anyway, clearly one other thing about photojournalism is that there are photos that people remember that are just sort of etched in your mind. And you know, this is about 58 years ago, because it was November of '63, I believe. So on the lighter side, you know, and I know I talk about, you know, and we'll talk a little bit about some equipment later, but it's hard not to get caught up in gear. But in Deadwood, there's a place called the Deadwood Mountain Grand, and it is a, you know, there's a concert venue there and a hotel. And early on, one of the partners in the ownership was Big and Rich. And so they did the first concert at this hotel and concert venue. I just have a point and shoot camera in my pocket, and I was walking around the place, and I went toward the back and saw this happening. Now this is like a little 8 megapixel point and shoot camera. That's nothing special at the time, but things sort of just lined up about right. And so thinking back to the, you know, the photojournalism, and a picture tells a story, and all pictures tell a story to some degree. But here's a picture that, except you don't know who's performing, you can kind of figure out what's going on. It's probably a concert, and it's probably country. You know, so that's kind of some elements, a real simple picture that can make a successful photojournalism image. This is Main Street, Deadwood. There are a couple of different events during the summer where there are free concerts on Main Street. And typically the morning of those concerts, everybody puts their chairs out there way ahead of time, so they get their chair, their spot. And this is typically an angle that you can't quite get. And I'm going to talk about some access things later in some other slides, but there's you know, the concert, the stage, of course, the rigging and the big frame around the stage. I had wanted to do a time lapse of Main Street filling up with these chairs, which turned out to be too far away from the stage, but also the main area where people would dance and stuff during the concerts. So I'd made arrangements with people that were doing all the rigging to mount a camera at the top and do a picture every 30 seconds or every minute throughout the day and then into the evening while I'm up there. And so I talk about access, you know, when you're trying to get access to certain places, take advantage of that. I would carry another camera up there while I'm rigging the other camera, and I could look back and get this photo, which shows the, you know, sort of compressed view of all these chairs. Now, again, nothing super crazy about the photo that's you know, mind bending or anything like that. But there's this guy out there setting up his chair, lots of color, so it's kind of fun to look at. And it tells the story of those free concerts a bit. So this is sort of what that ended up being. Now you can see it moving quite a bit because it's windy, and you know, it's not a firm structure. It wiggles a little bit, so you can kind of see the cameras moving around quite a bit. And I did this 2 days in a row, and I don't know if one turned out any better than the other, but it was just something that I had wanted to try. There was no market for it. Nobody bought it from me, anything like that. I just wanted to try it. And I'll go ahead and let this kind of play out. I should maybe ask real quick too, is there a time limit I need to worry about here? Is there any kind of a time limit for me?
They usually have 45 minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna probably start marching through these a little bit faster. You sort of get the idea here is eventually this, you know, the shade kind of takes over Main Street. It starts to go into evening. Every one of these frames is really whatever the resolution of the camera is. It's pretty good resolution, but I've reduced it down quite a bit here so it would play decent. And then you'll see the stage lights kind of starting to take over the street. I'll go to the next one. So here's a feature image, but a story about, can anybody guess? A gun range. So a skeet range, and this was the first summer I worked at my first daily newspaper. So, you know, just kind of got down in the grass and nice and low to get this silhouette. So another picture that kind of speaks for itself. You can kind of tell immediately what it is. Just a Memorial Day ceremony. Again, probably 1980s. is when this was taken. It's kind of a rainy day, you can kind of tell by what she's wearing. And, just like a stern face there and, very much paying attention to what the ceremony is all about. Stand by for 1 second. Hello. Hello. Sorry. I've been here on the meeting, so I wanted to let you know.
I'm sorry. I will head that way.
No, the noise is not a problem. The noise is not a problem.
Okay.
But don't set the alarm on you.
Okay, I will. Okay, sounds good.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I was not expecting that here at this building.
I didn't know what else to do. Okay, she got quite startled when I tracked her down. Anyway. So again, feature photos, a little slice of life here. Again, nothing crazy, newsworthy, mind-bending about this, just a slice of life. So most people know what a 50-50 drawing is for some cash. This is at a rodeo. And, so half of the money usually goes to whoever's trying to raise money. In this case, I think it was some middle school girls basketball. And so you see this girl, it's this great big tall cowboy here doing the nose to toes, and so the nose to toes is a pretty good deal for this guy because he's like 6'4" or something, and people just having a good time. And it's a very candid shot. I mean, there's probably some awareness that I'm there, but I mean, this is all happening like it would really happen. So just kind of slice of life stuff. One of the more enjoyable sides of photojournalism. I knew I would have a duplicate or two in here. So I was duplicating things earlier and I didn't quite get everything deleted. But so part of the feature stuff that we shoot is sometimes do photo illustrations. And so these would be, again, this is back in the 1980s, a story about chewing tobacco, no doubt. That might even be my hands. I can't remember if I was the one doing this or not, but it's a studio lit red gel flash on the background to turn the background red back in the 80s and shot on slide film. So there were certainly opportunities to kind of deviate from just the capturing life every day to doing setup illustration type shots. So the other main thing about photojournalism typically is doing sports, because a lot of, there's always typically a sports section in a newspaper. And I'm talking mostly newspaper stuff here since that's my past. So I'll show some of that. So, I mean, the one thing about sports is, again, especially back in the film days, is the lighting is terrible. Black and white film, if you tried to push it anywhere to where you could get a decent shutter speed, it got very grainy. And, so the quality wasn't great, but, your deadlines are tight. So you may go to a game and you've only got the first quarter, and then you got to go process film and make a print, and then it has to get into the production process. So this happened to be a little sequence here, and these are not super sharp or anything like that. You can see the movement in the ball. But again, shooting sports and action type of stuff, you're really not in control of much. You can only try to just do the best you can with the tools you have to try to capture what you can. So like that little sequence, managed to be like that. And I didn't have like a real fast motor drive on this camera. It was like a 2.5 with 3 frames per second kind of thing. But the one in between frame was interesting. So you don't know this until you process your film. Okay. And so we end up using that one. And most of the time the editors want to see faces, but they ended up using this one just because it was humorous. So obviously no funny stuff going on here. That just happened to be where the ball was. So you get, in those days you get some nice surprises. Nowadays, you know what you got pretty much right after you shoot it. But so it's an unpredictable thing that sports can be. So more current day, this kind of stuff still happens, of course. Where the ball will be in front of somebody's face. So when it comes to shooting action, you want to familiarize yourself with sport, which will help you anticipate where the action is going to be, and then consider whatever settings you need to freeze the action, or maybe you don't want to freeze the action. Some people like to do some panning when it comes to motorsports or running, or something where you can do some panning to give it kind of a creative, more abstract look. And then you want to, try to prepare for whatever the lighting may be. And you may or may not be in control of that. Most of the time you're not in control. But these days, getting, white balance nailed down, and frankly, most people shooting sports action on deadline really can't deal with raw images. You just don't have time. So you really need to do the best you can to get it right in the camera, kind of like you did with the film. You got to kind of choose the best custom white balance or whatever you can so that you have the most minimal amount of time possible to crop and adjust the photo and caption it and get it out to whoever needs it. Compose and wait. It may not seem like something that you would consider for sports, but this is something that was brought up by one of the Canon Explorers of Light that I completely identified with when he spoke here on Black Hill State's campus a number of years ago. And his photography was geographic and not sports related, but I use it in sports all the time. Action after the reaction, or action is a very, very often very good photos. Context and environment, in other words, photos that show the venue and that kind of stuff. In other words, I always think of wide, medium, and close shots to help kind of tell the whole story of where you're at. And of course, faces, I mentioned before that, editors like to see faces, except, sometimes there's no faces, if we just saw that. These days, of course, you guys have all these cameras, you kind of know what this stuff's about. The auxiliary lighting, not, some people don't get into other lighting and whatnot. I had to shoot slide film way back when, so you had to use lighting. You had to become fairly proficient at that. And then remote triggers and hardware and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to keep on knocking through here. There's a quote that I've always kind of liked about sports, and I think it applies to any performance art as well. Sports serve society by providing vivid examples of excellence. So I think that's one of the reasons that even though I was not really an athlete myself, I played baseball through high school, but sports is kind of exciting because you do see that excellence. And when I go to a good community theater or concert or something like that, I think of those things all very much in a similar way. So this is an available light image here at a basketball tournament. This was in Rapid City about 10, 12 years ago. I'll just keep kind of marching through these here. Black Hills State, volleyball, a lot of times after a point, everybody gets together like, hey, awesome, hey, we're happy. It's rare that you get lucky to have both emotions in the same shot, but you can kind of see the towel flying up in the background and the team in the background celebrating, and clearly what's happening with the team that lost, in this case, Western Illinois. I mean, you can try to put yourself in the right spot with experience as much as you want, and I think it's something you get better at. But I mean, you could come up completely empty-handed sometimes too. So clearly there's some luck involved with some of this. And it's all happy here, but kind of two different kinds of happy. Every once in a while, you'll have a bench player or someone that is the gift that keeps on giving. I think this was about 2003 at the Women's NAI National Tournament. Get a couple of baseball shots in here. So again, you think about the double plays and the ball hitting the bat and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes, there's a lot. Baseball can be kind of slow, but then there can be a lot going on at once. And so, here's a guy that's, he's running to first base and he's exclaiming, they probably just got the hit that won the game or something like that. And, a little high five afterward, just a good face. They got him with some shaving cream afterward. Just other basic action shots here. The background is fairly clean on this. That's usually not the case, especially with smaller stadiums. There can be a lot of busy things in the background to be distracting. But anyway, a little more sideline celebration kind of stuff. So away from the action, you'll see a lot of good stuff. Or the action after the action, as I mentioned in a previous slide. And if you happen to be close to the sidelines and you got a good background on something, you can get a good close-up shot of somebody. You never know if it's a player you may need to do a story with. A little context here. This tells you about the day. It was a kind of a cold, snowy day at the stadium. so not very many people there. Obviously, this applies to last season, and it kind of tells the story of, you know, hey, there's an officiating crew and they're all with masks, and this never got published or anything like that, but it was a pretty easy shot to grab, and like I said, it's a photo that would tell a story. Now, so this is a posed shot, obviously, but so I was at this is 2013 again, at a Nebraska football game, and this woman is a graduate of South Dakota State. That's the Jackrabbit logo you see on the right in the blue color. So she's got this half and half shirt. Well, her son goes to Nebraska, so she had to wear a t-shirt that showed both. And so I saw a few people doing that. So I just stopped her because there wasn't really a good way to get a shot of that. So I stopped her, and she's tailgating, and got the story and included that information in the caption. So it was like a tiny, tiny minute story, a little vignette about what was going on before this game. You know, people streaming into a stadium. Again, this is all away from the action, and most of the time wouldn't get published, but there are shots that you can go back to if you have to. I often, when you see, you got blue and red here, opposing colors from the different teams. I know that I always got in the habit of shooting stuff that I could shoot horizontally and then also shoot something vertically, because person designing that page, would you rather have them crop your horizontal into a vertical, or would you rather give them a choice? So give them a couple of photos. There's a little flyover thing prior to the game, and some balloons. A couple of guys from the opposite teams that knew each other after the game. And most often you'll see teams gather after a game like this too. So action after the action here. You know, a lot of times when it's a sunny day, you don't get to see faces very well when they're wearing helmets or caps or something like that. I don't know, you know, that's why a lot of us, I mean, this is kind of a bright day here, but you can see on his arm, but it was real easy to see his face. So that's what I thought made this photo look pretty good. You don't have terrific faces here, but a moment that's kind of peak action. So I put this one in there, and I was talking about the compose and wait thing. And I broke my own rule here because I was kind of test driving a lens where I thought I wanted to shoot from the end zone. Well, the opposite end zone just has this brick building, which is not a horrible background. But so consider number 22, this was after a good defensive play. So the guy I do some photography with is shooting from the sideline, and which I normally do is shoot from the sideline opposite the biggest part of the stadium on some of these smaller stadiums. So the background is people, out of focus people. So here's his shot, and this is my shot at the almost exact, or this is his shot, sorry. Here's mine. Here's his with that different background. This has a little more impact. To me, this is just a little neat, this is a nicer looking shot. I mean, this has its place, and it shows other defensive players. But this to me is just a lot more impactful. So you can kind of pick and choose your backgrounds a little bit, even though the action is moving around, to sort of help your cause in a case like that. A little more sideline stuff with some benches here. You know, your typical story here is final minute, final seconds of a game, probably free throws or something like that. This stuff is always going on. Here you got the out of focus in the foreground, team calling timeout, and the players on the bench kind of anticipating their win. It's a Wyoming and South Dakota game. I left this one in here because I figured the player on the left always reminded me of Will Smith. Still does. So, you know, there's obviously an opportunity to go to a lot of different types of sports, and soccer, you know, is one of those. I'll just keep on kind of plowing through stuff. You know, probably not her favorite face, but tennis is kind of a fun sport. You know, again, finding a good background so your subject stands out, but still see, you try to see, so not everybody turns their face the right direction when they're doing the high jump, but you get, you just try to figure that out. This is some NBA G League or D League basketball at the time. It's kind of the NBA's minor league. This was in North Dakota. This is one of those places where I actually go up into the catwalk and mount strobes. And you can sort of tell that this is strobes and not high ISO stuff.
Photo journalist.
I dug this one up recently because this woman just got inducted into the South Dakota State University Athletic Hall of Fame. She was on a team that won a national championship when they were Division II, and then now they're Division I for the last 12 years or so. You can kind of tell that this is, I would often take pictures of just during boxing out during a free throw, because they're sort of easy to grab. And again, maybe, who knows, is this person going to be, the guy that has the 1,000 rebounds that season, or who knows what. These days, you're not too worried about shooting all your rolls of film. So these are easy shots to grab, and you can kind of tell by the light on the people in the background and the light that's on these guys. This is strobes being used in this arena. No strobes here, but a pretty nice new arena with fairly decent light. I always kept this one around because this guy's playing defense on two guys at once. It kind of looks like to me. So I always kind of thought he was a good hustler. Obviously strobe here. You can see how bright and shiny and sparkly the light is. Super sharp, and it allows you to shoot at ISO 400, Same kind of thing here. And of course, the downside is you only get one shot, and then you have to wait for a second for your strobes to recycle. A little bit of weather during a game, so it's starting to snow. Just a little more basketball. I'll just kind of keep punching through these. Looks like he's gonna, getting his arm bent a little out of shape there. The Black Hill State, this is the game at Black Hill State. Their gym walls are green. I appreciate that the walls are dark, but they also kind of cast that green light back out onto the floor when you're shooting pictures under the basket too. So there was a regional that was in Sioux Falls, Tennessee, and Syracuse a few years back. This is not strobe, even though we do have strobes mounted in this particular arena. Up in North Dakota again. Hand on the face. Okay, we got some cross country. These mass shots at the start are kind of nice. You just see a lot of faces and, just sort of mass athleticism kind of going by your camera. Not a photo that I probably would use, but it had kind of an interesting splash of sand. More indoor running here. And this is a very dark place. I probably was on an old crop censored camera with this at ISO 5000 or something. So it's really it's not a very nice image, but these guys were pretty good off to the side. So again, looking past the actual activity of the event, these track meets, you'll sometimes get these guys that kind of are pretty entertaining off to the side. So a little bit of hockey. I'll just kind of keep marching through these for time here. Catching a good spot, the angle in this case for getting the pole vault and the bending of the pole and the face. And some other sports that are not so traditional. This is mountain biking coming down from Terry Peak over a pretty rough area. A lot of people walked through this area. This guy rode his bike. And fat bikes are kind of a big deal now, the fat tire bikes. And they're racing a course that was groomed around one of the golf courses a couple of years ago. A nice wide shot here. I sometimes try to think about shooting photos that this empty space up here, you could think about this being in a magazine where the story starts to get laid down right in the sky here. I was kind of test driving a lens this summer that worked out pretty nicely on some rodeo. A little bit of rock or ice climbing quite a few years ago, a little bit of skiing. That's some skiing competition that started up at Terry Peak out here in the Black Hills a few years ago after not being around for almost 30 years. That's an image that's kind of a context image. There's Bear Butte back there. For those of you that may have noticed that when you're out here in the Black Hills. But telling the story of what's going on there, is keeping all the times and the names and all this kind of stuff. So if we were telling a story about the event that day, we're including stuff that's going on behind the scenes, scoring and timing and all that kind of stuff. And then some racers here checking out their times and other people's times. So again, back to the photojournalism thing, it's just sort of about telling that story. A little alternative image here that's, I don't know if it's really sports or not, but I happen to be a trail guide for a couple of different Jeep events out here, so I thought I'd throw in a Jeep picture here. Another rodeo shot.
Love it.
Wow.
Okay, a little bit of crowd here. So telling the story, this is a Division II men's national championship about 3 years ago. Crowd waiting for the gates or the doors to open to come into the game. So I'm already there. I'm set up in the media room, ready to do stuff. And you know, there's no sense in hanging out in the hospitality room eating pizza the whole time. You walk around and you try to get some photos like this that, again, helps tell the story of the day. More exciting folks off on the sideline. You know, back to the fan decor of the faces and all that kind of stuff and funny hair. Sorry about that slide that keeps popping up in between here. I'm not sure why that happens like that. But. So University of South Dakota students here that are, you know, cheering after a basket. I don't know if you can read that sign. It says rabbit. It's what's for dinner. So that they're playing the South Dakota State Jackrabbits and they're the Coyotes. So that's kind of what that means. Yeah. A lot of good faces there. So, I mean, you know, a lot of times you're sitting on the baseline taking action. If you position yourself that you can just swing your camera around after a play and try to grab a shot like this, that can always be a good thing.
Hey, Richard.
Yeah.
We're running a little bit short of time, so.
Okay. Let me just do this. Here's a, you know, we've seen a lot of the same kind of stuff here. I made a special trip to get pictures of this guy, Don Meyer, who was one of the winningest coaches in men's basketball. There was a movie done about his life in 2016 called My Many Sons. So I went specifically to a game to get pictures of him with players in the background, like his My Many Sons. There's a I knew I would have these duplicates, and you know.
Oh.
Right. What kind of time do you think we're dealing with?
We're past time, actually.
Oh, okay.
So
this is a couple of quick frames that shows me just bouncing one light off the ceiling of a gym compared to no light, extra light at all, and how much that kind of cleans up the shot. I wanted, you know, you go up and do these catwalks. This is an old 1950-ish arena in Sioux City. The catwalk is wood in some places up there. Whoops. Yeah, you can, the red circle is around one of the strobes right there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do, here's the Wells Fargo Arena in Des Moines. It's about 80 feet above the floor there on the catwalk. Bismarck, that's about 70 feet up. I did want to run this real quick if I could. This is a walk around of the Premier Center in Sioux Falls. And let me see if I can just jump it ahead here. Okay, so I'm walking down the catwalk. You can sort of see the seating and the floor down off to the left there. Eventually, we'll walk by a spot where I'll see where one of the strobes is mounted. It should be coming up real quick here.
Right there.
Okay, right about here. I think I'll point my camera at it a little bit. I'm probably busy trying to not drop my phone right now. So there you'll see a light that's kind of aimed down at the ground. There's 4 of those. Sometimes we'll have more than 4 of them aimed up there from the catwalk. That one's about 80 feet up also. A lot of these newer arenas are pre-wired for strobes too, so you can just sink right up there and not have to run your own cables or anything like that. There's, in this red circle is the camera that's mounted above the basket. So I'm going to skip past this one. This is just a time lapse of somebody switching from hockey to basketball. So the camera from above will give you stuff like this.
Hmm.
Oops. There's my duplicates again. And again, when you have that sort of access and you sort of get people that are comfortable with you being up there, you go like, let's get the tip off from up there. And then the decal on the floor changes or whatever from one year to the next. And so you grab these shots and, you know, get the wide shot showing the crowd if they happen to be fairly full. Up in the catwalk, taking cameras down and getting discs out of cameras. People are still celebrating, grab another shot. You know, it's always nice to have that extra camera with you. Gonna bounce through these real quick. One other spot that not every place has a spot you can mount right above the net or the basket. So you just kind of do the best you can. This one's a little bit behind, and you'll see here, there's a camera mounted behind the basket in my red circle there. So it's kind of shooting through the glass. So that'll give you stuff like this. And for whatever reason, your flashes aren't going off, you just slow your shutter speed down and see what happens and get something kind of interesting with the dancers. Also, I can stop on this one. I wanted to mention also about your placement. I'm in the red circle up on the bleachers over there. This is a photo somebody else took during a championship volleyball game. Anticipating what I would see from the other side gave me this instead. So I got all the faces. So yeah, the all hair team. You get a lot of these funky hair shots here. So I'm just going to go through these as quick as I can to the end here. A couple of guys I went to high school with. The one in the dark uniform on the left there, that's his son playing for Denver on the right. So now I'm starting to see the extra generations of, that's a father and son there. This is a woman who is cutting the championship net down on the right for the 1994 NAI Women's Championship. That's her niece on the left cutting down the net for the championship 24 years later. David Bald Eagle. It's a pretty well-known guy that had attended the Days of 76 parade for about 75 years. He passed away a few years ago. I was able to get an opportunity to get a nice portrait of him a few years back. Access and building relationships, unhooking all the pool lanes to put around this woman who'd been teaching swimming for 50 years or whatever the story was, and setting up a nice photo rather than just with just the water. There's opportunities to do portraits and stuff too for photojournalism. And so this is the same wall. I'm just putting some light on the background in this one. The cliche reflection shots. This is about a 5-minute lighting setup, by the way. Blue gel on a flash on a treadmill back there, putting the light on the wall. Daylight coming through a doorway right there. And then just a little tiny softbox on a speed light on the foreground. And then just change the color on the gel and the flash in the background. Pretty straightforward light here. Just an umbrella there. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. If not for the pandemic, this probably wouldn't have happened. This was in Sports Illustrated last spring because March Madness didn't happen. They were looking for photos of this woman they wanted to do a story on from the University of South Dakota. They call me and the other guy I work with, like, do you have any extra photos of this person? Because she's like a cheerleader on the bench type person. Well, of course we do. So these 5 images got used in this illustration, the 5 images I took for this illustration in Sports Illustrated last April of 2020. And there she is during introductions. So she barely plays, but she's like always one of those really on this, like you can't take your eyes off of her. It's like every time a play happens, go look at the bench and she's just on fire over there. And that's her there. The last newspaper I worked at, we did a lot of magazine stuff too. So these are all shots for the magazines. Did fashion and architecture and trends, style to spare. That's a bowling alley. Mascots, they're a lot of fun. That's my last one there. That's actually a UPI transmitter. I used an AP transmitter that's very much the same. This is how you used to have to send your photos. You make a voice connection and then you unscrew the mouthpiece and put 2 alligator clips on there, and that's how you'd send your photo. Yeah. Through the old rotary phone like that. So that, I know that's the last slide. So sorry for I kind of drug on some things on the early part there, but I promise I'm done.
I thought I'd tell you, I know we're short on time. I thought I'd tell you a quick story about my dad. He was a missionary in Iran in the late 40s and 50s. And he was invited to the Shah of Iran's wedding. And he and the UPI photographer went together with a team of runners to send the film out as they took the pictures. And the UPI photographers camera wasn't working, so he borrowed my dad's, but he forgot to take the lens cap off.
Oh.
And they were sending out rolls of black. And the
Oh.
only photographs they got were the ones my dad had taken before he passed over his camera. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can remember not having film in my camera a few times way back in the day. So.
Okay, Richard, thanks so
Thank you
much.
so much. That was
Bravo.
great.
Love having.
Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
Love having all those Dakota pictures and stuff. It's not
Yeah,
something.
those are some fantastic shots all the way through there.
Yeah.
Well, and thank you guys for that slide or that movie or that video at the beginning. That was wonderful. It was nice to see all that, and it looks like a group I'd want to hang around with. You know.
But Richard, one of the things I'll take that opportunity. You guys, as long as we're doing Zoom, you let the photo club up there know, get a hold of Chuck and get the coach. You guys can join our meetings if you want to.
Sure.
No extra cost, no extra cost for that. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
The price is right.
Yeah, or you can lead the show too.
Okay, we're gonna take about a 5-minute break and then we'll get into the share and learn to finish up the meeting. And we got quite a few, so. And if Richard wants to stay around, that's great. But the theme is colors, so looking forward to that. Okay, we'll see you guys in, let's see, 8:16, maybe 8. Let's just make it 8:20. We'll start back up.
Okay, good, Jim, thanks.
Okay.
Well, that was interesting. Wow.
That's that.
Everybody can take a little break.
Yeah, yeah,
Can they hear me?
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let's see, I'll see if I can mute. Let's
Hey, Bill, I was going to ask you, do you want to go to that, you want to go to our special interest group thing, SIG meeting on Thursday?
yeah, that's the new addition to Lightroom and so forth.
I'll send you a link, all right?
Yeah, I would like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to make sure I can get in on it too.
Well, Ann, I don't think so. I'll send you a link too, Ann. How's that?
Alright.
I'll send you a link
Be
too.
that way.
Yeah.
Chuck, while you're making a list, it's Tim, you can sign me up too. I'm not sure if I'll be able to pull away then, but I'll try.
Yeah. Have you been in our previous one? Did you? Anyways, anybody who was in the previous one.
I was in some of the previous ones. Some I've
Yeah,
been there.
we did.
So
Let me,
we
let me,
pretty much kind of decided we need to meet earlier in the day because it was scary to get out in the car with Gloria and her walker and everything, and it's pitch black in there. So we said, we need to start doing this stuff in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Go to lunch and something.
How far are you guys from Frisco?
And we got to learn all about the.
From
wedding
Crisco?
and everything.
Frisco.
Next
It's north of Dallas, I think.
Oh, no, we're pretty far, about 250 miles.
Okay.
My daughter lives up there.
Okay. That's where the FCS National Football Championship is played, and I was almost there in May. And depending on who gets there, I might be there in January.
Oh.
Sister and her husband and family.
Yeah, we're down near the Gulf of Mexico.
Michael
Okay.
gets a 2-week vacation starting.
We don't talk to people from Dallas. They're a different breed.
Coming to Pittsburgh, and they'll all.
Except
be
my
there
daughter.
on the 17th, and then Ace's daughter helped them find a wedding venue in an old Victorian home. And
That's a good
it's
deal.
just gorgeous, and they've hired a violinist, and and we worked on.
Yeah, Richard, if you have time to look at our share and learns, it's just interesting. A bunch of interesting pictures. You get quite a diverse group.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Salad, then main course. We decided on a filet mignon and a crab cake.
Gil, we're all listening to your conversation here. If you want to mute your
Well, what about the dessert?
mic.
She says, that's gonna be wedding cake. Then they're flying back here, and they are going to have a reception.
I'm gonna mute him here.
Okay.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So Steve, are you going to say anything or just look handsome?
Emily, you're just cruel. You're a bad person.
No, I was just gonna say, I loved Richard's granddaughter in the background.
She's 14 months old in that photo. She's
Oh,
the one
okay.
with lots of hair.
Yeah.
She's adorable.
Chris is the one that usually has all his 55 grandchildren in the background. Yep.
One great.
Let's get started. It's been 4 minutes.
Okay. I'm going to put my child on the back.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Your little furry one.
My little furry baby.
We have 2 dead cats back there.
She's a lucky dog.
I played golf with a guy today that doesn't like dogs. And he's a good guy too. At least I used to think he was a good guy. I mean, he doesn't like dogs. I thought, my God, what kind of person is
No,
he?
Ranger.
Okay. Who's up for, Chuck? who's up for-
I guess I need to do something, huh?
Yeah, you need to.
Yeah. Dude, okay. Let me go in here. I get my something here. Hold on. Okay, I just go through that. So we got a bunch of people. I'll get it right on to it, Jim. Okay, Ann is up first.
Okay. Ann, is she back?
Here I am, yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I thought just a very colorful shot. It's in Alaska. And in July, everything blooms at once because the growing season is so short that it's just the most lush, beautiful place, especially this is the temperate rainforest in the Katmai Peninsula.
Yep.
And that's in my yard.
Oh.
That yellow ladybug, it's actually a native ladybug, just posed there for me as long as I wanted it to, so I could get that photo. And that was also in Alaska. It was what they call fireweed because it's bright colored, but it also is what grows up after a forest fire. So rather than have a dead landscape the next year, your first year, it's just covered with these flowers.
Mhm.
That's really pretty.
Hey, Bill?
Hey, Bill, I think you may be muted. Unmute yourself. I'm sorry, I muted him.
Hey, Chuck, we can see your setting, your controls on top of the screen.
Okay.
Bottom left.
Let me get that moved off. I've got to get. Hold on. Let me do something here.
We gotta find Bill.
Yeah, we got to find Bill. Hold on. I got to find my mouse too. There it is. Move some stuff off here and back on. Okay, I'm not sure what happened to Bill here. Hold on, Bill Baird still muted. Asked to unmute. But why don't we can come back.
We can come back to him. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Now can you hear me?
Oh yeah, we can.
Oh, yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. Well, let's just shout out Lake Kingwood about this time last year when the trees started changing color, and I got a lot of reflections down the whole side of the lake there. So I kind of like that picture.
It's really pretty, Bill.
I just put this picture in from the Houston Zoo Lights. I went a couple of years ago. This is one I took, and one of the things you have to look for, I didn't quite get all of the letters exactly in, but I did use this for a Christmas card last year and got a lot of good comments about it. So if you're going out, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And I don't think I took a tripod, so be sure to take a tripod. This is at the chalk drawing downtown Houston about a year ago.
Yeah, that's nice.
A lot of colorful drawings there are just fantastic what people do with that. So
Do they do that every year, Bill?
I don't know, I haven't seen anything about it lately.
Yeah, I went, maybe the same time I went, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, we went together, as I recall. And
I think they do it periodically.
Yeah, it really was.
so anyway, that was one I liked.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris?
Me,
Color run.
well, this is a thing,
Yeah.
they used to do these around the city once or twice a year called the color run. And they throw that chalk dust that's all dyed and
Yeah.
everybody has a good time. And this father and son came off the course and I just loved the look on the kid's face. He's got his glasses on to protect his eyes, but they were pretty colored up. So anyway, to me, that said color.
Hey, Chris, I know that our church does a color run every year in May. Holy Cover
okay.
of Woodland
Yeah.
Hills. So
There's some, this was held way down somewhere on the east side. I remember I got invited to go to it and it was, boy, you had to watch out for your camera. You didn't want your camera to get hit with this dust.
Yep.
Because it's pretty strong stuff. So anyway.
Yeah, we've done it, had at least one in Kingwood, and
Yeah.
but you have to be really careful with your camera because you get
Yeah.
this stuff in your camera and your goose is cooked.
Yeah. Okay, so I just thought this was a beautiful example of strong colors. And this was actually shot down in Australia. While I was on one of those trips with my wife, there was a large botanic gardens in Geelong, which is south of Melbourne. And one morning I went out and these poppies looked so beautiful, but they had the sprinklers on. You got these great prismatics, like the little dewdrops. They'll all have little prisms. And this was shot with a Canon with a 100mm macro lens and just a tight shot. But I always liked the way the prismatic came out, but also just the bright orange, yellow, green, and color. So that was the theme. And here we go for some fall colors. My wife has gotten used to when we drive on backcountry roads, she knows I'm going to stop. And I saw this waterfall and I stopped and I took about an hour to take this picture. So just a nice, a little waterfall up in Pennsylvania. I think we were visiting my son and at the time, and just some nice colors and stream. And the camera actually is down. It's only about 12 inches above the water here. So I had one of those nice little low travel tripods to get me down there. Anyway, that's my shot.
Pretty cool. Okay. I'm going to try a different color. This is infrared.
Yeah.
And heck, it's color. This is the way a cat would see it or something. I'm not sure. But anyways, infrared. I like infrared photography. In fact, I'm having a new camera converted. It's a better one. Yeah, this is infrared color.
Is this the boardwalk down by River Grove Park?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, before the flooding.
Right. Yeah.
This is before the flooding. It turned into a big sandbar down there and stuff.
Yeah, at the very center where that sky dips down is now just a sandbar across there, and all those trees that you see there above the water are gone.
Yeah, yeah.
They're part of the river now.
But that's that. Another color picture I give you is fake color, I guess. This was a black and white. That's my mother, me, and my sister. And it wasn't a color picture. That was a passport picture back in must have been 52 or so. I was probably about 6 years old then. And I was always scared of the camera. I don't know how the hell I got into photography. But
be on the other side of it.
Yeah, but I was blessed with a beautiful mother. She died at 98 a couple of years ago, and she was just about as pretty then. Pretty amazing.
Amazing, your eyes are still the same.
What's that?
Your eyes are still the same.
Yeah, I'm still afraid of everything too. And that's my goofy older sister there. She's a nut, but she has a wandering eye. You can tell in that picture. So she doesn't always one eye was sort of kidding with us. And then the last one again is one I just took about 2-3 days ago. Bill Baird came by, and at some point in the lake, I had my camera, but that's right there in the Foster's Mill Lake. Beautiful sky. I love what infrared does to the sky.
Yeah, nice.
It makes really a neat sky. So.
Okay, Debbie,
Debbie.
Did she drop off?
Debbie Phillips. No, she's here. She's muted.
I think she put a note out there about having an unstable internet connection or something.
Okay, Debbie, if we're gonna go ahead and move.
Yeah,
I'll go through here. If you want to come back and say something, Debbie, you do that. Okay, so looks like fall color.
Yep.
Okay, let's see.
Metals.
Metals, yeah. And Emily.
A lot of people may not know, but up in the Seattle area, they have fabulous tulip festival. And, they're as good as Holland, and this is some of the brilliant colors of tulips up in that area.
Where was it, Emily?
It's in the Seattle area.
Oh, Seattle. Okay.
Yeah. Gotta have cool weather.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is on the north shore of Lake Houston at the Cove. And I loved how, as this is an Egyptian goose, and as he swam through the water, all the colors were changing with the reflections. It was just every 10 seconds, it looked completely different. I just loved it.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah,
it is. Swirly and just magic.
One to frame. You should frame that one.
It's a mosaic. It has a real nice mosaic look. Yep.
Doesn't it? Yeah, it's beautiful.
And then this is the Egyptian goose, which is colorful in and of itself. They're not native to Texas, but they escaped and are breeding on the north shore of Lake Houston by like crazy.
Yeah.
And they're very territorial, and they will chase any duck or goose out of their area.
Mm-hmm.
They're quite large and colorful.
Right.
Right.
Yep, this is me. So this was just 4th of July celebration on the Hudson River. There was a handful to choose from, but this is one that just showed all the nice colors in the Empire State Building that dressed in red, white, and blue for the occasion.
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah.
And then this is pretty much done every year in 9/11. This might have been 2013 or 14 that I caught it, but they put a blue beam straight up to the ends of the atmosphere where the Twin Towers used to be, and that's the Freedom Tower next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And then this last one is just a double rainbow, pretty much the same perspective, same shot, but a double rainbow over the. I think I could have done a little bit better job at exposure, but it does get the rainbows nicely.
Yeah.
Wow, pretty.
Nice.
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 Okay, John.
Well, this is the Cadillac Ranch up by Amarillo, and this is what the amateur painters get to do to those cars. I thought they made them pretty colorful.
That is.
Next one. And this is natural colors of sandstone up around Page, Arizona with the slot canyons.
Antelope Canyon.
Antelope Canyon, yeah.
Well, this isn't actually antelope. There's 2 or 3 different slot canyons up there.
Oh, okay.
When I was there, I wasn't willing to take the time. And this particular canyon allows you all the time you want to take photographs.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, we found a place like that up there too. Yeah, it's much better than antelope, I think. Yeah.
So if you want photographs, why sometimes antelope just pushes you through, and you got too many people.
Yeah.
Next one. And this is another example of color in nature. This is a piece of crocite in a big chunk of black matrix rock. I just kind of think about the miner who was in the mine and found this pretty looking crystal in the rock and chiseled it out and sold it.
Is this from your collection?
Yeah, I've got about 100 pieces of mineral specimens.
Nice.
That's gorgeous, yeah.
Wow.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah, this is in Salzburg. We were going through one of the gardens, and I can't remember the name of the palace behind there, but if you remember the movie, where they danced up the steps singing Do Re Mi. That was in the background to the left there. But I thought that was a very colorful picture.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, you can see the begging cup down below. Next. And of course, was my favorite place. I just couldn't decide what I wanted. So I took the one on the left there.
A lot of colors.
And that was in Germany. And by the way, this is in Albuquerque. They have an Indian Pueblo museum. I think, I can't remember the name of it. But these children came with their dads who were beating the drums, and they were dancing the traditional dances. And if you look at the one on the right, you see the fox there. That's probably older than anybody in our club because it's natural, passed down through the ages.
Wow.
Even
They also have a cable car that goes up the mountain for some spectacular photography in Albuquerque.
Yeah, goes up Sandia Mountain, I think.
Sandia means watermelon because the mountains look like watermelon color when the sun sets.
Oh,
Okay. This
Pam?
is at the Bloomsburg Fair in Pennsylvania. I just thought it was a colorful basket of vegetables and fruits.
And first place.
Love
Yeah,
that.
they got first place on that one. We went to a Polish festival here in Houston and the girls were all ready to dance and their costumes are just beautiful. And again, we're back at the Bloomsburg Fair at night, watching the lights on all the amusement rides, which was very colorful because they change colors.
Nice.
Oops, second, wrong way here.
there we go. Seth?
Hi there.
Motif.
So yeah, this was in Rockport. We were there in June for a wedding. And yeah, this was some may know motif #1, I think is what they call it. I've heard it's the most painted or purportedly most painted picture in the US. That's just a fish house on the other side of the harbor, but yeah, the colors were really brilliant and it looked, I thought it looked nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
My wife grew up there in Rockport.
Oh, okay.
It's a nice picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I tried it. Well, I had my Canon there, but it didn't come out. I ended up using the one out of my iPhone. I thought the color was a lot better on that one.
I hate it when that happens. Yeah.
So this one, this was a few years ago. We were at Lake Tahoe and we did a hot air balloon ride. And at some point, I just looked up inside of it, and I don't know, it was just a really nice shot, really colorful.
Nice.
And then this one, I think somebody had mentioned earlier about the portrait photographer we had at the last meeting. So just a week after that, my daughter, she's the one on the left, they were having homecoming. And so we went down by the lake to take some pictures, and a few of those tips really came in handy. But this one was just, I thought, very colorful. It was really, because of the rain that day, we were much later than we should have been, and it was just very red, especially with some of their dresses, there was a lot of red. But this one, I'd rented a 28-70 f2. There's just this massive lens, but this was probably 10 minutes after sunset. But just with a flash straight up, I was able to get some kind of a picture.
Is that at the Cove?
Yeah, right on Lake Kingwood.
Oh, Lake Kingwood. Okay.
Steve?
Okay, so this is from Art Alley in Rapid City this past September. So Tim and Ron may remember walking through there. I just love the colors and as well as the texture in this particular section of the wall that everybody was painting. Next one.
Oh, that's nice.
So this is, don't even know what kind of a flower this is. This was at, I believe, the Dallas Arboretum from a couple of years ago.
Beautiful.
And next, this is from 4th of July. in Rapid City, South Dakota this past year.
Tim?
All right. Well, when I realized we had, it was Sunday and I had to submit photos, I didn't have my drive with me. So I went with the most recent stuff I have. And I just realized I took all 3 of these in the same day in South Dakota. So unique. Maybe a little hard to see here because it's a little dark area, but this is the bead library, which is a Native American store in Rapid City called Prairie's Edge. And they've just got beads of every color in there for whatever projects you have, I guess. So kind of cool. This is a 3-shot HDR. I was just sitting on the floor there.
I thought it was.
Nice shot.
All right, this is Badlands National Park, right across from the visitor center. Ron found me this nice little path there to put in the foreground, so thank you, Ron. But like the color in the sky, and then of course the colors in the rock there. It was a really beautiful day.
Yeah.
And these are some colors I've never photographed before because I've never been anywhere dark enough at the right time to get a shot of the Milky Way. So also the Badlands National Park a little later that day. So fun place. We had a real limited time before the moon came up, but that was a fun time. Thanks to Kathy and Mike and Steve for the tutorial on what the heck to do there.
That's pretty nice. Beautiful picture.
Beautiful.
Mike, are you on? Because Kathy's not here. Not even know if Mike was or not. Doesn't sound like he is.
I don't see him. I'm looking by.
Okay. This looks like a aquarium or something here.
Underwater.
Yeah.
Underwater. Yeah.
Maybe it's the aquarium in Kima or something, the aquarium restaurant, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, that or Moody Gardens, one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Lavender. I don't know what kind.
Lavender fields.
Mm.
And that's Kathy.
Yeah, it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. The next one for Mike.
Pretty sunset.
Nice colors for sunset. Yeah.
It's nice.
Okay, we'll do Kathy's.
Oh,
Do you have a narrative here, Jim? Or
No, I don't. That's the Color Factory is down in the museum district, and I think Ann Mullins, several people went down to that.
yeah.
It's you pay some money and go in there.
Yeah.
So and then the next one is one of her grandchildren, I guess.
Well, that's so cute. Oh.
That tongue looks like it's been eating something red, but that is.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is goes to Disney World.
Yeah. Nice colors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yep. Okay, and these are mine. Is that Color Factory, there's a similar thing out on Highway 6 between I-10 and Westheimer called Seismic. And this, I took my granddaughter out there, and these pictures are from Seismic, and it is a unbelievable colors. I mean, that's what it's all about. Next one. Yeah, another one of the, and these are different rooms to do anything, and it's wonderful photography. Most of these were with my iPhone.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
It looks like eyeballs.
Yeah. So, okay, next one. This is one of the painted churches.
Yeah, pretty.
And I don't know if this is iPhone or not, but if that's a must do. I think most people in the photo club have been to the painted churches, but they're special. So it only took me about 30 years to get there. Okay, that's it on the share and learn. We're not going to have any program next month. We're going to have the party. Share and learn for January is going to be Sunburst. For February, street captures. And in January, we're going to do street photography. So that's the time for that one. And let's see. I think that's it. A couple of thanks for the volunteers and stuff. So that's it for the meeting.